This is the Teacher Talking Time podcast.
All right, welcome to another episode of Teacher Talking Time, the podcast where we dive deep into challenges, research, and all things teaching related. If you are a teacher who's looking to turn your passion for education into a successful business, I think you have come to the right place. In today's show, we will be exploring the unique obstacles and triumphs of teacherpreneurs, from finding clients to balancing work and life. So grab a cup of coffee, a glass of whiskey, sit back and join us as we explore the exciting world of teacherpreneurship.
Amen.
Mike,
You got
Andrew.
me. You got me thinking. What's in my mug? We should play
What's
that.
in your mug today?
Play a little game of what's in your mug. I got decaf coffee, folks. Doesn't get
I
more
got water
hardcore
today.
than that.
Whiskey. I don't have any whiskey today, but it's usually on the shopping list. Every couple of months, a little bit of whiskey, especially in the winter, keeps you going.
Yeah. And as I said in introduction to the show, boys, I really wanted to dive deep into the challenges faced specifically, not by just teachers, but today we're going to niche down a little bit, and we're going to talk about the challenges faced by teacherpreneurs. And I think it would be a very important question. I think the first step for us in this episode is to actually define what a teacherpreneur is. So who are these teachers that are calling themselves teacherpreneurs? Perhaps the two of you could actually give us, or could perhaps shed a light on the definition that you have in mind.
Yeah, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, certainly. I think it's whoever wants to be one, but obviously it's a play on an entrepreneur and teacher, right? So I think at a very loose definition, it's just someone who wants to make money on their own time, on their own dime, and can do that in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's also, at least for me, it's a mindset as well, right? So it's something where you choose to identify as one. Teacherpreneur, entrepreneur, solopreneur, any kind of preneur seems to be the vernacular these days for that. Just someone who wants to make their own money for themselves outside of a traditional quote unquote job. It doesn't mean that you don't have a job, but as a side hustle or a super side hustle or a third hustle or something, earn your own money. That's it for me.
That's
Mike?
right. Yeah, I would just add the magic word of ownership also comes to mind, right? So they're selling something, as Andrew said, they're making money off something that they have and they own it. So maybe it's their certain approach to teaching. So they have a series of lessons that they've put together, and they teach privates and groups. It could be a series of materials that they've put together that they think would make a course, and they can use that. But clearly it's theirs. It's not owned by another company. It's something that they can leverage, and they're therefore responsible for growing.
Right. Yeah.
I want to know where the word teacherpreneur, we know where it came from in terms of entrepreneur and teacher, like clearly, but at least for me, my Grammarly has not, it's not in its lexicon. Every time I use it in a post, you have to dismiss. It gets a red line under it every single time. So Grammarly hasn't come up with that word in its lexicon yet.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think, a couple of things, just connecting the dots here, based on what the two of you have said, is basically a teacherpreneur is a teacher, first and foremost, who has this entrepreneurial aspirations, or has already started a business that is somewhat related to education. And these are teachers or educators, and connecting to what Mike said, who are basically using their skills, they're using their knowledge, and they're leveraging their experience to create, I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me, but they basically create innovative solutions to problems in the field of education. And why do I say this innovative solutions? Because we have been working with a lot of teacherpreneurs who have created solutions to problems. So for example, we could even here mention Jessica Diaz, who has been part of our community for a very long time. And she noticed that there was a gap in terms of teaching pronunciation. And what did she do? She created a course, I guess, where she teaches students to improve their pronunciation through self-directed learning, of course, but showing them how to learn and master the IPA so they can actually take ownership of their pronunciation journey. So in a way, that's what teacherpreneurs are doing, right?
Absolutely. That's it. And then it's hers, right? It's hers, it's nobody else's. And then now she becomes responsible for how far it goes, right? So this is where I think going back to what Andrew said, this is where I think the business side of it comes in, right? Because a teacherpreneur is someone who invests in themselves. And sometimes they do it because they are perhaps trying to compensate for something that they're not getting from, say, another position, right? So they're basically trying to perhaps have a way to be innovative, something they can't do at their school, for example. The other one is that they're investing to grow, right? They're investing because perhaps they really want to have not just a business, not just a few students, but they want to create a lifestyle for themselves that allows them to, say, create something, travel the world, teach when they want to teach. And to do that requires a different level of investment, right? So, people invest in themselves for different reasons, but teacherpreneurs have clear goals. And again, in one case, it's to find rewards from another area of your life, or it's to, again, build a real sustainable business.
Rewards is a good word, I think, because I think a lot about this, and there's many reasons why someone would start their own business or offer something, or a teacherpreneur would become one. And one reason, very simply, is that like someone's bored and they just need something to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's not most people. Most people, especially with teachers, is they really are passionate about helping somebody or helping people to be better or to improve in a specific area. And not to generalize, but certainly was true for me. I believe it to be true for the two of you, and probably many people listening, where working in quote unquote traditional forms within education, perhaps that gets lost a little bit, and we don't get fulfilled in terms of our passion, or not completely, right? Where we get to help the people that we really want to help in the way that we really want to help them. And, having your own offer or program or consulting or whatever it is a way to fulfill that desire to help that specific type of person. It comes with its own challenges, certainly, but I think that's one appealing option of, hey, what I'm doing over here is, I like it, but there are areas that I feel aren't fulfilling that passion that I get to help that specific person, and I can do that also, walk and chew gum at the same time, kind of thing, over here by working with those people on the side.
What I was gonna, Mike, what I was gonna say is just basically, so a teacherpreneur might basically start a tutoring service, for example. They could create educational products or resources like ebooks and so on and so forth. And we've seen teachers offering professional development for other teachers, which is how we basically started our business, how we started learning English. So in essence, a teacherpreneur is basically a teacher who has taken what you said, Andrew, their passion for teaching and turned it into a very successful business venture. But we all know that, making the leap from being a teacher to building such business, or creating this successful business venture, doesn't happen naturally, and doesn't come very easily. So today, I was thinking, I think it would be a very good opportunity for us, since we're back on the podcast, our first podcast of 2023.
Oh yeah.
I thought it would be a very good idea for us to actually talk about the kinds of challenges that teachers, aspiring teacherpreneurs, or emergent teacherpreneurs, as Mike coined the term more recently, because the word emergent is very frequent in the. I watched a presentation this morning on emergence and improvisation. But anyway, what are some of the challenges now that we've been working? We have a group of about 200 and something teachers in one of our programs, and we have about 60 something in the other program. And we have been working with these teachers, some of them aspiring teacherpreneurs, some of them already in the midst of teacherpreneuring. So
Oh, look at you.
I want to ask you both, because we've talked about this and we talked to different teachers. What are some of the challenges that we could perhaps explore in this episode today?
Goodness. Well, if you're listening and you're in our TSN, I mean, you know, some of ours, there's some trainings there on us. And Leo, Mike, I guess, like, you remember us sitting in, we've used some pictures in TSN of our origin story or whatever. And I feel like we're a pretty good example of overcoming, and I mean, still we have challenges, obviously, certainly. It's part of, I think, what's appealing about being an entrepreneur is that, you know, you overcome challenges and then don't become complacent. You keep going and you get to the next obstacle or the next challenge. But certainly if we look at our journey, like, we overcame a lot of them at the beginning, and really reflecting and being honest with myself about what we did. Like, we didn't know anything about what we were doing. Then we were really just throwing, you know, spaghetti at the wall and looking back at our first niche statement and everything, and it was all like a hot mess, to be honest. Like, it was garbage. But we were, I remember, like, we were really proud of ourselves, and I think that's not a mistake. That's just a challenge of, like, building up, getting a first iteration of an idea and realizing, like, you know, this sucks actually. And but then not stopping and just reinventing it yourself and getting better, right?
Amen. And I think that therein lies the challenge, Leo, is that people are reluctant to get started because right off the get-go they're worried about failure. And therefore they never take the action, right? So as Andrew said, the reason we've been able to move forward and stay together and actually have our relationship as individuals, as friends, grow is because we just decided to take action. We took that action, and then, as Andrew said, we just learned from our mistakes and we just kept going. And I think teachers, I love you all, but one of our greatest strengths is our biggest weakness, and that is that we really aim for perfection. We aim to have the most impact, but that's really what holds a lot of teachers back. A lot of teacherpreneurs is that they really want to do it right the first time, and if they don't have faith that they can do it right the first time, then they just don't try. And then 1 week turns into 1 month, 1 month turns into 6 months, and then a year, and then you're still not closer to where you want to be, all because it's not perfect enough, right? So I really think, like,
we had that.
And, you know, we didn't always agree on the directions we should go, but at least at the end of the day, we took action, and then we saw what the result was, and then we either kept it or we got rid of it, and we moved on. But I think that has to be one of the biggest challenges, I think, for a lot of teachers.
I know we like to talk about what I just thought of right now, which are the 3 oars of a successful teacherpreneur.
Careful with that one.
And these are the 3 different hats that I think, and there are others, but 3 general hats that we all have to wear. And we all have different levels of strengths and weaknesses within them. And this is the creator, the teacher, and the entrepreneur, which we have to blend all 3 together in order to grow a successful enterprise, company, solopreneurship, whatever the case may be. And there are different skills within, and some people have, you know, more creator than entrepreneur, and some more teacher than creator, et cetera. But really, to be successful in the long term, there needs to be a balance, at least in my opinion, among all 3 of those, because they're all important. They all do different things. They all look different, but they're all necessary in order to grow in a linear and organic way.
Yeah, and they all kind of play off one another. They check one another, right? So you can be super creative like we were, but unless it actually makes business sense or is realistic, then that's when the entrepreneurial brain kind of kicks in. Your entrepreneurial ego kicks in and kind of holds you back a little bit for all the right reasons. Yeah.
In life, balance is always the hardest part, right? It's easy to have extremes. It's easy to be 100% of something or 0% of something, but being in the middle is always, like, the dilemma and the hardest part. You know,
good point.
Some people jump in and they really focus on the teaching part and the helping people part, which is the most important part. Like, a business that doesn't help people is nothing, because you won't go anywhere. On the other hand, like, if you have a way that you help people that doesn't allow you to help more people and help you sustain yourself financially by, in a certain amount of scale, then you're not helping yourself in that sense either. So what is the balance in the middle? Then the creator is, how do you design the materials, and then how do you get eyes on your offer in terms of marketing and attraction and the blend of all of those things together?
I do agree with everything you both said, but I want to go back to perfection, because I think we know this, and I think this is something that is, I would say, is deeply ingrained in a lot of teachers. We're constantly striving for excellence, and we know this is an admirable quality, but personal experience is that there are a lot of problems with seeking perfection, and I think Mike mentioned one. It's this idea that you're constantly trying to achieve this unattainable, or create this unattainable standard, because that's how I feel. And then eventually this leads to this never-ending cycle of self-doubt and dissatisfaction, which is how I felt while creating some of the courses. I kept saying, no, this can be better. This can be done. And I kept going and back in circles and in circles. And I'm like, you know what? We just have to release this, and then we're going to iterate. We're going to make changes. We're going to improve. We know it's impossible to achieve absolute perfection. So I think we have to set a standard that is attainable. So we know that things are not going to be perfect, but we know that they're going to be up to a certain standard. So I think one thing that teachers need to understand is that nothing, no product, no course, no lesson, no business will ever be perfect. But you have to know that you have to be constantly making changes. As we said, iterating. This is something I've learned from being in the tech world, is this desire for perfection is bad also because of that, because it's paralyzing. And I think it prevents a lot of teachers from taking risks or from trying new things. And if this fear of making mistakes or not being perfect is what really stopping a lot of teachers from taking action, they are actually missing out on a lot of great opportunities to learn, grow, and create their business, right?
For sure. For sure. So much to unpack there. That reminds me, there was a good question that we had in our TSN community yesterday or a couple of days ago. Shout out to Danielle, because that reminds me of that, Leo. And I'll throw it back to you, because she was asking that she thought she had understood or just wanted clarification on the concept of shipping, which I know we've talked about in previous podcasts. How would you define shipping in the context of what you just said?
To me, shipping is just showing up every day, is doing what's essential to help you move the needle. And I'm going to give you a very good example here. I was trying to finish this 5-step to create an online learning experience. And of course, I went through the slides yesterday, and I said to myself, I think it's ready to go. Of course, I didn't record. This morning I woke up, I'm like, no, I'm going to go through the slides again. And while looking at the slides, I realized that I wanted to change and add new things. So I said, you know what? That's that perfection voice just, breathing down my neck, creating unnecessary
Right.
stress and anxiety. Because that's what happens, I feel this pressure to always be perfect, to always create these amazing, amazing videos. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because it's never going to be perfect. But if I create that today and I listen to that video a year from now, I may want to tweak a few things, because time passes, things change, industries change. So to me, it goes back to an analogy that I used with Mike when we were recording an episode for the student podcast. What was that called again?
The cult of learning.
The cult of learning.
Yeah.
Where we said Rome wasn't built in a day, but every day they were laying one brick. They were shipping every day.
Yes.
That's how I see shipping.
Just looking at what I responded to, and I just said, it's basically what you just said. It's eliminating the perfect and sending out the imperfect anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much more succinct response. Mine is too
Well,
long.
I had time to write it down.
No,
So.
that's beautiful.
Mike, shipping for you? What do you think?
No, same. Yeah. I think that's something that we've learned like over time and again, we had to get over it. We really had to. But when I look back at the podcast was never perfect, right?
Oh God,
it
no.
actually started off in Leo's living room with really bad microphones, and we were all around one another, so we could, like, it was getting
Feedback,
picked
echo,
up. We were
everything.
getting
Yeah.
feedback and everything, right? But we did it. We shipped, right? We showed up and we put the episodes out there, and but we never did that with our courses, and as a result, they never got made. They never got released, and when they finally did, it wasn't as impactful. So we learned over time, and I think that's what the purpose of this episode is. It's just to share with potential entrepreneurs, emerging entrepreneurs, that it's a very normal thing, and that you should take pride in what you ship, right? Not with perfection, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you're able to show up, as Leo said, and tick that box is actually more beneficial than spending 5 to 6 months on planning. And I think we've learned, yeah.
It's funny you said that, because we were talking about those courses, right? And we always say that every teacher has a course in them. I think I have about 15 courses that I haven't really fully digested, but because what stopped me from creating those courses is the fact that I was always overthinking them. But I think the lesson here is that we should just basically, like we did, we've embraced imperfection. We've recognized that making mistakes is really, truly a natural part of the entire learning process, and that nothing is ever going to be perfect. So by embracing imperfection and viewing our mistakes, because I think that's kind of like the mindset that we developed, we perceived our mistakes as opportunities for growth and constant learning, and of course tweaking things, right?
Amen. The old adage, fail early and fail often. Yeah.
Accelerate to fail.
Accelerate to fail. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys and everyone listening this question, because I'm not like smart enough, or I'm not versed enough in what we can call like perfectionitis or whatever. But Leo, you're right. It's definitely the most common, I would say, characteristic that we hear from our community of, why haven't you done X? And usually people say, well, I just want it to be perfect. And I suffer from perfectionism and all of these things. But I always think about this, like, okay, if whatever you're building, if it's a course, if it's a whatever, if I could tell you that you could put it out there and nobody would see it, would you still delay putting it out?
Can you ask that differently?
Is it a case of, I want this thing to be perfect, or is it a case of, I'm afraid of being judged?
I think it's the latter.
Right?
I think it's definitely the latter.
Like, is it my own expectations of this thing, which certainly play a part, but I feel like it's more not wanting something to be perfect, but afraid of it being so imperfect that there's scrutiny.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But how often, and then you always talk about this, Lee. I remember we did a podcast about fear, and you said that there are rational fears and irrational fears, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's so much an irrational fear.
It is. It really is. Because it's amazing how teachers have a lot of confidence in their teaching, but when it comes to putting themselves out there, they lack that confidence in their own abilities, and they're even unsure if their own ideas are viable. I think a lot of that also stems from fear, like fear of failure or judgment of other people, which I think most of the time is what really prevents them from taking the first steps towards starting their own business. And I'll tell you why. Because when you are teaching, you're in the classroom, you're in that box behind four walls. No one can penetrate that perimeter. It's just you and your students. The moment you build your teaching business and you're selling your courses and you're selling your services and you're productizing yourself, things change, right? Because you're definitely in the arena now.
I mean, the perception or unperception maybe
perception,
changes,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I think it's not a teacher thing, it's a person thing. It's just like, like anytime you do something for the first time, you're like, I don't know if I can do this. It's totally normal, right? And I think that's just where you need to push through. And if it's something that you really want to do, if it's not, then don't do it. If it's something that you actually want. And there's this daunting, Rihanna just performed at the Super Bowl, right? This daunting umbrella of start your own business, grow your own business. And like the perception of that phrase is like, oh my God, there's a million things inside of that. And to some extent, that's true, but it doesn't mean you do a million things at the same time.
Exactly.
Same thing that we would say to our students, like, I want to learn English. Like, well, first of all, that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
Like, what does that actually mean? And two, whatever the goal is, like, we're not going to do everything today. We're going to do step
Yeah.
one today. So
Yeah.
it's really just compartmentalizing what are the steps. And I think that also is perpetuates that perfectionism is, maybe we don't know, if we don't know what the steps are, that that adds a layer of the uncertainty.
Yeah. No, I think you said it. That's pretty much it. And I think one other thing that probably plays a role in their, in their approach to becoming a teacherpreneur, I think it's the lack of business knowledge. As you said, like, we don't have this hat. We had to develop this hat. We had to like go to the store and buy that business hat so we could actually learn more about business. And because as we said, while teachers may be experts in their subject area, exam prep, pronunciation, dogma, ELT, a lot of us lack the business knowledge and the skills that I needed to start and run a very, as you said, a very simple business at first. Like when we look at Jessica, for example, again, I'm bringing her up. Jessica started with the IPA. Now she has another course, so she already has two. What really stops teachers is that they think that they have to start with 5 courses. They think that the business is, when you say like, oh, we'll help you grow your business or start your business, as you said, it sounds, the umbrella term starting a business sounds a little daunting to a lot of people. But as long as they understand the marketing, and more importantly, as you called, the machine, how to operationalize the machine and make this business run on its own wheels, then I think we have something. But that is something that really a lot of teacherpreneurs struggle with.
Yeah, and I think, sorry,
Sorry,
Andrew, I was just going to say, like, I think, Leo, they don't reflect back to when they first started teaching and how they might have needed a kind of template in terms of how to approach a lesson plan, right? They might have needed some strategies for what to do when your class isn't as talkative or the students are reluctant to speak, right? So we've been there before. What we typically need is a nice model that we can follow, as Andrew said, right? And then from there, we can start to put systems in place to expand from that model and to personalize it and add our own little bit of nuance to it, right? And then over time, that it evolves and it becomes a little bit bigger. But it's what people need is a template. They need starting points that they can just latch on to. Just like when you were a teacher starting off, you needed a kind of framework for how you might set up a lesson. You needed ideas for how you might go from one stage to the next. And then you needed some ideas for how you might speak or add some differentiation to your class to help to make sure that all the students' voices were being heard, right? So business is no different. But you have to start somewhere, start small. But as Andrew said, start with a system, because it's the system that you can build from, right? And that's really what helps you speed up the rate of change and speed up the development process.
Or your business doesn't become bigger. Like that's okay too. Like it can be literally whatever you want it to be. I feel like we see this a lot with when we ask people about their goals and we say, well, how much money do you want to make? What course do you want to have? When do you want to launch it? And a lot of the answers are like, oh, I don't know. So getting clear on what we want is like the most important thing, because like growing your business into the abyss doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, I want to learn English. Okay, why? Well, I don't know. Well, how are you ever going to do it if you don't know the why, right? So having a business, like the person who has a hot dog stand on the side of the road has a business. And Jeff Bezos also has a business. But like, which one is in your reflection and in what you want for yourself? Which one of those or something else is your version of it? Because there isn't a version of it. It is whatever you want it to be. So you can start small and you can stay small forever, or you can start small and grow, commiserately with whatever your vision for yourself is. And your vision for yourself will change, of course, over time as we evolve as people. But it really starts with what do we want? And that's the first question.
Yeah, and being honest with yourself too, right? Like if you want to live in Latin America and chill out and teach once a week, then be honest with yourself and then put yourself in a position to do that. I think that's it. We would do that with our teaching careers, right? We wouldn't work at a school that we didn't like, unless we felt like we had to. But that's the point of being a teacherpreneur, is that you're taking ownership over your life, right? So once you do that, then as you said, Andrew, you need to be clear with what you want to do, but you also need to be honest with yourself. There's nothing wrong with being greedy. A lot of people are saying, when we ask
Right.
that question, like, well, how much money would you like to make? People always, and it's fair, everyone's different, but we do hear a lot of conservative answers, like,
Very
oh, I'd like to
conservative.
make, I'd like to make like $1,000 a month or something like that. It's like, oh, okay. Well, would you be happy making $5,000 a month, right? And it's not to be lofty, but it's just like, be honest with yourself, right? If the number is 5,000, then it's 5,000. If it's 1,000, as Andrew said, that's also fine. But the sooner you get to that vision, the better, right? Because then you can start to put those systems in place that are going to get you there. So for example, it might be really hard to make $5,000 a month if you want to teach privates, but it'd be very easy if you had a course that you could repurpose and sell and run, say, every 5 to 6 weeks, right? Then it becomes a lot more manageable. So you just need to be, as Andrew said, and Leo's touched on as well, you just need to be very clear and yeah, just be honest. There's nothing wrong with being greedy. A lot of teachers are ashamed to say that they want to earn more money. I don't know, it's like the only profession in the world where it's like a bad thing to say that you want to earn more money. Like, oh, if you're
I
happy
agree.
getting paid $17 an hour teaching in downtown Toronto with when rent's $2,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment, then continue to do that. I'm not going to judge you, but
Yeah.
let's be honest. But be honest with yourself. It's okay to want more, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the marriage of those 3 hats and other hats and whatever, right? It's not just about how I help my students. It's what's the vision I want for my life? What can I form around that actually does help people and then helps clients and helps myself at the same time? A scenario that we throw this out all the time, right? About like, if you wanted, let's use 5,000 as an example. Like, if you wanted, that was the number that you wanted to make, what's the path that you would choose to get there? Would you choose to sell a $50 offer to 100 people every month? Would you choose a $500 offer to sell to 10 people every month? Or would you have a $5,000 offer and you sell it to one person every month? All roads lead to Rome. It gets you there.
Yeah, they get you there.
But
Yeah,
which
yeah.
one do you think is easier, but better? Like, which one better fits the vision that you have for yourself?
And I think your point that you just raised before Leo jumps in there is, I'm saying that, and I know what you're saying with your analogy with the $5,000 and how we get there, and that is important. But I think teachers themselves really almost to their own default put their students in front, the concerns of their students ahead of theirs. And by no means are we saying that, in being a teacherpreneur, you're going to become some sort of cold business person. But I think what Andrew's trying to get at, and what we're really trying to get at, is this idea of there must be an easier way, right? There must be a way where we can really make meaningful, positive impacts in our students' lives, while at the same time doing what we love, and while at the same time getting paid, or what we want, what we feel is right. And becoming a teacherpreneur involves, again, those 3 hats that Andrew mentioned earlier. But it also really means like being honest and really prioritizing yourself, as well as the materials, as well as the students, and so on. Yeah.
The hard part's
And-
done. Like,
Yeah.
learning how to be a teacher is hard. And for everyone who's listening, more than likely you've done that.
Yeah.
Business
if they're listening to
process,
this podcast, they are, because they're clearly
yeah.
passionate about teaching. Yeah.
So we always say, like, you're in like a really great situation. If you think about anyone else who wants to start their own business, they're probably like an accountant and they have an idea for like a vacuum cleaner or something, like completely different, no expertise, no skills, really literally starting from scratch, right? If you're listening, like, you have the hard part accomplished. Like, you are a teacher, you're good at what you do, you have the skills, you have the expertise. If you're listening to this show, you're interested in getting better, which is half the battle. The business processes and all of these things are just things that you can learn. Like, that's that. The hard part is finished. So there's a huge advantage already inherently, that you have.
This is all very true. But the one thing I find, even though they've internalized all of that, they haven't gone through the hard part. A lot of teachers, even those with a lot of experience, the one thing I see them struggling with, or a problem that they struggle with before becoming or just jumping into entrepreneurship, is that they say, I don't have any business idea. I don't know what course, I don't know my niche. And this is why I think we love to say that every teacher has a course in them. But before I talk about that, I want to go back to the productization, because being an entrepreneur basically means that you are productizing yourself. And when you think about that, you have two words, right? You have productize and you have yourself. And as Mike said, yourself, you have uniqueness. Nobody is like you. Nobody teaches the same way. You might have very similar teaching philosophies, but no two teachers will teach in the same way. And when you think about productizing, you have leverage, right? You have a course that you can create, an idea that nobody has ever explored, like the IPA example. And yourself, as Mike said too, has accountability, right? Productize has that specific knowledge, and yourself has also specific knowledge in there. So what you're doing is you're putting all of these pieces together into these two words. And this is why we say that every teacher has a course in them, because we truly believe that every teacher has a unique perspective, a unique set of experiences, and unique knowledge that they can then productize by sharing this with other people through a program or through a course. And I truly believe that every teacher I have worked with has something valuable to teach, and they have the potential to create and share and sell their own courses, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Just ask yourself, why do I love teaching? Why do my students love studying with me? What am I really good at teaching? What am I passionate about teaching? Right? We can all answer those questions easily. As Andrew said, we're not creating a new gadget. We're taking something that we already do really well, and we're just packaging it into something that we can repurpose and we can use for, say, a more passive form of income, or another kill two birds with one stone. It's something that we can do that drives innovation, but also gives us a little bit of extra money on the side. Either way, it's something we own that we can choose to use however we want.
And if you're listening and you're thinking, that sounds great, but I don't have a niche, I have a story for you.
The niche story, go for it.
It's such a polarizing word, right? Like niche. I don't know how to choose a niche. Well, there's no right or wrong to any. This is right, but for me, like we don't choose, or we don't find a niche, I should say. We choose one. It's an active decision, right? And you can change it later, but it's an active choice. But we don't choose one just by like sitting in bed in the morning. Oh, I'm going to choose. Like, no, it has to be based on data, based on decisions. And how do we get this data is by talking to people, right? And I think this is a big challenge that a lot of people have apprehensions about, going out into the world and just talking to like 10, 20, 100 people, writing down the answers, and then looking at the information and making an informed decision about what I've found.
It's very basic market research, right? You're
It's not rocket science.
Yeah. It's just you're trying to identify a problem that needs to be solved. That's it.
And I spent last week in the Dominican Republic sitting on a beach drinking 19 pina coladas every day.
Okay.
And every day I saw a guy, presumably a Dominican guy, walking around the beach with 2 birds and a monkey on his shoulder. And you know what he did to every tourist on the beach? You can guess.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he was, offering he wasn't doing any monkey business, I can tell you that.
Oh, there it is.
No,
Yeah.
he
Was
came
he
up
hitting
and
on birds or
he
what?
said, "Do you want to take a picture with the monkey? Do you want to take a picture with the birds? $1." And every day I watched him go to 19, 20, 50 people on the beach. 48 of them said no. But every day he got 2 people to take a picture of him and his birds or put the birds on them, right? And I sat there and I watched this guy and I was thinking, you know what he's doing? He's prospecting.
Exactly.
Literally in the real world, like we do this online, or if you have an online business, you do this through Instagram or whatever. But literally, it's if you ask enough people, someone's going to say yes. And he knows 48 out of 50 people are going to ignore him and say no. But if you ask enough people, 2 are going to say yes. And every day I watched him walk around and ask everyone else, no, 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 no. But then I'd come back from the bar with my next pina colada, and someone's over there with their camera, and he's making his dollar. So it's not rocket science. It's just hustle.
It is a little bit of hustle. Yeah.
It's hustle.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's word of mouth there. Someone posts a picture. Where did you get that done? Oh, I got this done on this beach. There's this great guy. His name is Rocco.
Yeah.
Check him out when you're at San Juan Beach next time, right? Yeah. And then who knows? Then next week it's 46, or he gets a little bit more. He gets 4, he gets 5, he gets 10 of them.
He's showing
Right.
up. He's showing up.
showing
every
up.
day.
Showing up.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask him, but I bet if I had, I would ask him the very first day you did this, how did you feel? He probably would have said, I was really nervous. I wasn't sure. And now he just does it every day and doesn't even think about it. And it's normal. Just like, when we teach classes now, we probably don't get too nervous anymore. I know when I first started teaching, I got really nervous when I walked into the classroom, and now I don't think about it anymore. When we normalize something, it just becomes, it's a thing that we do.
And probably he only started with 1 bird, and then he added a second one. And then people are like, do you have a
Yes.
monkey? And then he probably
Scaling.
added a monkey. So he was basically validating the idea through testing, seeking feedback from these potential customers, which is basically what you're doing with your teaching business, basically, right?
And he probably, I mean, we're making assumptions now, but like maybe his goal was, I want to make $2 a day. And he figured out that at first he only asked 25 people to take a picture, and only 1 person said yes. So he only made 50% of his revenue goals, right? And then he figured out, okay, well, I need to talk to 50 people in order for 2 people to say yes. So these are like data-driven decisions that we all make in developing that entrepreneur hat version of those 3 ors or ers of a successful teacherpreneur.
Do you think that when he started this monkey business or bird business, do you think that when he started that he was comparing himself to other people who were also selling things on the beach? Because that's something that I hear a lot of teachers say to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can't get people to take pictures. Leo has a monkey too. Leo has birds. I can't do
Leo
that.
does it better than I ever did.
Yeah. So I think competition is also another perhaps another obstacle that prevents a lot of teachers from starting their own teaching business. Oh, but too many people are already teaching exam preparation. But so many people are already talking about this. I'm like, I know, but you can still find a way to do this your way.
Not to be that guy, but if you think that's true for you, you haven't niched down far enough.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, Andrew?
Yeah.
Because if you niche down far enough, you eliminate competition. There is no as if you go to a certain segment of the market, you're literally the only person there, or very few people that are there. And if you stay a generalist, or you say, I don't want to niche down because I'll lose clients, that's actually backwards. Because then literally every other teacher is your competition. And then you have nothing to say when people say, well, this teacher only charges this much. And what are you going to say? Because you're offering exactly the same thing. But if you niche down far enough, you eliminate competition. You become more attractive to a very specific segment. And guess what happens to your rates? They go up because you're the only person in town that can do this.
And I think we talked about this, Mike, in one of our recent presentations, how humans are highly mimetic creatures. We're constantly copying what everybody else is doing, including our desires. And what happens to a lot of teachers is that they very often get trapped in the wrong game because you're competing. And as what you said, Andrew, the best way to escape competition is to just be authentic to yourself. Like, yeah, I want to work with entrepreneurs. Let's use Vanessa's example here.
Sure.
A lot of people work with entrepreneurs. A lot of people work with females, but she's working with French female entrepreneurs. She's not just working with entrepreneurs. She's not just working with
And
French,
who want to, and then
who want
X,
to,
right?
yes, who want to
Exactly.
be able to talk about their business and be able to expose their brand. So again, she is escaping competition by just being authentic to herself. If you're building and marketing something which is an extension of who you are, no one can compete with you on that.
And
It's
guess
impossible.
what? You get more referrals that way too, because people will come to you and you say, no, actually, I don't do that. But Leo's a great teacher who works on that. You should go talk to him. And then vice versa.
Yeah.
People go to Leo and he says, no, I don't do that. But Andrew does this. You should go talk to him, because you're not a generalist anymore. You're a specialist in something.
Yeah. Authenticity naturally gets you away from competition. Niching down naturally gets you away from competition.
Right.
So that's something that you should kind of you should definitely bear in mind. Which brings me to the last obstacle in this course of an hour, I think, that we're hitting at some point in this podcast. We're going to try to keep it short today, but this is actually. We got 5 minutes. Okay, so we might go a little bit overboard, but this is one that I heard from 2 teachers that I spoke to very recently. And Mike, we talked about this in the presentation as well. A lot of teachers want to gain financial freedom. And I was talking to this one teacher today, and she said, "Oh, this school is offering me," this is of course in South America, "this school is offering me $12. Oh, but $12 is a lot of money for me here." I said, okay, but you're basically getting paid $12 per hour, which might be great. I get it. But if you're making 20 through your own business, you're making more. And this is it, Mike. We talked about this idea of building or buying equity, right, in a business. So if you don't own a piece of business, if you don't own equity, you don't have a path towards financial freedom, because it's always going to be ownership versus wage work. And if you are paid for renting out your time, which, Andrew, you talk a lot about this, so maybe you have a few cents to add to this. Even lawyers and doctors, doesn't matter. You can make some money, but you're not going to make the money that gives you financial freedom. You're not going to have that passive income where a business is earning for you while you're in the Dominican Republic sipping martinis or pina coladas. Yes.
Yeah.
And without ownership, your inputs are always going to be very closely tied to your outputs. If you think about this, in almost any salary job, even one that pays a lot per hour, like a lawyer or a doctor, you're still putting in the hours, and every hour you get paid. And without ownership,
it's a 1-for-1, right?
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
1-for-1.
Yeah, and without
lawyers
ownership,
lawyers are employees too. Like they, unless you're a partner in a law firm who, splits the ownership, the revenue of, you, granted, most lawyers probably make more per hour than most people, but you still get paid by the hour. And there's nothing wrong with getting paid by the hour. If you get paid $1,000 an hour, good for you. Go do that. But if you don't, but again, like what you said, it depends on what you want. You have to get clear on your own goals. And for me to watch our bank account tick up while I was on the beach was a pretty neat feeling,
Exactly. Because you're basically, you have ownership. If you don't have ownership, when you're retired, you're not earning. When you're on vacation at the beach, you're not earning, and you cannot earn non-linearly, right? And this is something that you said once also, Andrew, in, I think it was a podcast or maybe a conversation that we were having, where you said, if you're working for somebody else, like if you're working for a school, the school is doing all the work. The school is taking the risk. The school has the accountability, the intellectual property, and the brand. Of course, they're not going to pay you enough. They're going to pay you the bare minimum they have to get you to do their job. That can be a high bare minimum, but it's still not going to be true wealth when you're retired because you're not going to be earning, right? So when you have your own business, then you are the one taking the risk. You're the one who has accountability. You have the intellectual property. It's your brand. So owning equity in a company basically means you own, and we talked about this, Mike, you own the upside, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's the difference between getting paid a salary, having an income, and real wealth, right? Wealth is something, it's an asset. It grows over time. It's something you don't give back to someone, right? You're not exchanging your time. As Andrew likes to point out, you're not selling your time. You're now building an asset that you can leverage and sell again and again and again and do it from wherever you want in the world.
Or exclusively selling your time, right?
Yeah.
I the best line that I've seen on this topic comes from one of our gurus, Justin Welsh, and it speaks for itself, but he said this: I wanted to work for a company that cared deeply about me, so I employed myself.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Teacher Talking Time. We are going to be back in March with a new interview, but we really hope that you found our discussion on the challenges and obstacles faced by teacherpreneurs both informative and inspiring. And as we've heard, teacherpreneurship is an exciting and rewarding journey, I should say, despite all the challenges. But again, as you said, Mike and Andrew, it's not without its hurdles. From overcoming perfectionism to balancing work and life. I think we were able to explore some of the most important and unique obstacles of building a business in the world of education. So we would like to thank our guests, our listeners, I should say, not our guests, for tuning in, for listening to our valuable insights and experiences. And we wanted to thank all of you who have, trusted us and who have joined us on this journey. So whether you are a teacherpreneur already on your way or just starting to explore the possibilities, we hope that you've gained some new ideas and strategies that will help you succeed. But I know that we have a community for those aspiring teacherpreneurs and for those teacherpreneurs who are already deep in the battlefield. Mike and Andrew, what can we tell these teachers who are just starting?
Well, we've already mentioned a few hurdles that a lot of teachers encounter when they're first making that transition to becoming a teacherpreneur. Well, the good news is that we actually have a community out, the TSN, the Teacherpreneurs Support Network, where we explore the 5 most common hurdles. So it might be a great opportunity if you are kind of envisioning yourself as someone who would like to design a course or go out and become a teacherpreneur in general. Please join the Teacher Support Network, where you can join as Leo said, over 200 teachers working together, sharing ideas while working through some of those initial hurdles that really can hold you back at the beginning. And it's a great little place to find out what you need to do and what others are doing to overcome those, as well as just speak with Leo, Andrew, and I on a more regular basis. Andrew?
Yeah, and that link is just, if you're listening in Spotify or wherever, just that link is just below in the show notes. Or if you don't have it there, just shoot us a message on Instagram and we'll get you in and get started over there in TSN.
Just make sure you fill out that survey, that questionnaire. Yeah.
Yes. And if you have any feedback, any questions, any topics that you would like us to explore in future episodes, please do not hesitate to get in touch. We would love to hear from you. So until next time, keep striving for success. Never stop learning. Never stop failing. This has been another episode of the Teacher Talking Time, and we'll see you in the next episode.